ඔබ සැමට උත්තම් දලදා සමිඳුන්ගේ ආශිර්වාද ප්‍රාර්ථනා පෙරදැරිව අදත් අපි සූදානම් වෙන්නේ ඓතිහාසික කන්ද උඩරට ඇසල පෙරහැර මහා මංගල්‍යයේ තුන්වන කුඹල් පෙරහැරේ අසිරිය ඔබ වෙත ගෙන එන්න. උතුම් දලදා හාමුදුරන් විශේෂයේ වාර්ෂිකව පවත්වන ප්‍රධානතම මංගල්‍ය වන්නේ මේ පෙරහැර මංගල්‍යයයි. අද දවසේ පෙරහැර කරඬුන් වහන්සේ වැඩම කරවීම ඉන්දිරාජා හස්තියා විසින් සිදු කරන අතර දෑලේ ඇතුන් ලෙස මියන් රාජා සහ බුරුම රාජා ගමන් කිරීමට නියමිතයි. අද දවසේ නිවසේ සිටින ඔබට POTV නාලිකා අංක 20 සහ ඩයලොග් නාලිකා අංක 140 ඔස්සේ සහ ෆ්‍රී සෙට් චන්ද්‍රිකා නාලිකාව ඔස්සේත් මේ පෙරහැරේ අසිරිය නරඹන්න පුළුවන්. ඒත් එක්කම ශ්‍රී දලදා මාලිගාවේ සමාජ ජාල වෙබ් අඩවි ඔස්සේත් ඔබට මේ පෙරහැරේ අසිරිය නරඹන්න පුළුවන්. අද දවසේත් මේ පෙරහැරේ විසිතුර දැක බලා ගැනීමට නන්දෙසින් පැමිණි ජනතාවගෙන් සෙන්කඩ නුවරගල නුවර පිරිතිරි ගොස් තිබෙනවා. ඉතින් ඔබට අපි ආරාධනා කරනවා එන්න අපි ඓතිහාසික කන්ද උඩරට ඇසල පෙරහැර මහා මංගල්‍යයේ තුන්වන කුඹල් පෙරහැරේ අසිරිය නරඹමු.
வணக்கம் 2002 වැරදුනා.
Showcasing the pinnacle of Buddhist celebrations and the glamour of Kandian heritage and history, the third Kumbal Perahera of the Sri Dalada Perahera 2022 is ready for the street perambulations. We invite you all to Kandy to witness this pageantry live. And for those of you who are joining us from the comfort of your home, tune in to Dialogue TV channel number 140, Pure TV channel number 20, Free Set channel number 2 and all the other social media platforms of the Dalada Maligawa Media Bureau.
We are delighted to welcome you to the special live broadcast of the third Kumbal Perahera, brought to you by the Media Bureau of the Sri Dalada Maligawa. You are now seeing the Perahera officials obtaining the permission and blessings of the Diyavadana Nilame, the lay custodian of the sacred tooth relic, before commencing their street parading. This is the handing over of the keys by the Diyavadana Nilame to the officiating bhikkhus. And now, the Perahera casket is reverentially taken under the protection of the Deputy Chief Incumbent of the Askiriya Mahaviharaya, Venerable Vendaruwe Upali Theru. What you are seeing now is the Perahera casket, which contains 32 relics of Lord Buddha, is being placed within the Ranhilige, mounted on the lavishly costumed tusker, who will add colour and glamour to this third Kumbal Perahera. We see the Perahera officials offering flowers and garlands to the Perahera casket. This is the third night procession of the Kandy Esala Perahera festival, paying homage to the sacred tooth relic to honor Lord Buddha And this is the devout moment when the great Tusker steps majestically down from the Mahavaharkada to the Sandagala in preparation to parade the streets of Kandy. The royal Tusker of this third Kumbal Perahera will be the leader of the Sri Dalada Maligawa stables in the Raja.
We are seeing aerial pictures of the very glimmering lit Dalada Maligawa right now.
And this evening, the third Kumbal Perahera will be proceeding down the Dalada Vidya, the Kotukudella Vidya, and the Raja Vidya.
Up first, in the third Kumbal Perahera, we are seeing pictures of the whip wielders. Usually, the duty of the whip master is to clear the way for the holy Dalada relic. In single file, they wield their whips to notify the citizens of the impending approach of the Bhupati or the king.
In the ancient times, it was the ruling king who would parade in the streets. But now, it's the Diavadaranilame, the lay custodian of the tooth relic, for whom the streets are being cleared.
Although the whip conjures up fear in most minds, the sight of the Perahera whip master has the opposite effect, calming the populace since they are the ones who clear the way for the living Buddha to walk the streets of the city.
The whipmaster's duty is handed down from generation to generation of their clans. Only those who have mastered the art of whip cracking will be taken for the grand Rangoli procession. According to traditions, a Perahera who do not have this act is not even being worth as called such. And this troop of whip wielders is led by Mr. Upali Jayaratna.
In the times of the kings, the whip was an instrument of punishment. But this duty is not a duty of that nature. Here, the instrument is used to remove fear and to create a sense of love and compassion among the people and bringing merit to them.
It is also believed that the sound of the whip cracking depicts the sound of thunder and lightning, paying homage to rain gods, requesting to bless our crops and cultivations with rain. And we can see that practically happening right now under the Kandian skies this evening.
In addition to that belief, it is believed that these whip wielders are the ones who are communicating about the impending approach of the Perahera to the people who are living in the surrounding areas. It also sends a signal to invite them to come and say this pageantry parading the streets of the Kandy city.
Many onlookers will throw thousands of coins to the streets in the belief that this will ward off any evil from their loved ones and for blessings from the sacred tooth relic.
Indeed, it is a very beautiful tradition that highlights the basis of giving and sharing among the people in our land. Therefore, regardless of how rich or poor they are, they offer their coins in great devotion and joy to this Perahera.
I believe this is a tradition that we are seeing after a silence of 2 years, where the great public was not allowed to wield the Perahera in person due to the health conditions of the country. But thankfully, we are able to see the usual crowds which add the authentic sense of the Perahera festival.
The Dalada Maligawa premises is all lit in celebration of this heritage culture of the Kandian city.
And now we are seeing the arrival of the second item this evening, who are the fire dancers led by Mr. E.D. Tilakaratna.
In this rainy weather, just as lightning flashes across the skies, the Perahera too has its flashes of light whipping across the faces of the people lining the streets to watch this procession. This is the offering of fire to the gods to water the earth with rain. The dancers are seen creating paintings of fire across the night sky as they move in procession. For the children, it's a fire play, and for the experienced elders, it's a devout, committed fire dance.
The lightning which comes with the rains, a phenomenon of nature, is magnificently depicted by these group of fireball dancers. Turning of the fireballs is called Pandam Padiya, which paints the night with varied patterns of light illuminating the procession.
Indeed, it is also symbolical of the sun, moon, earth, universe, solar month, night and day, and how all of them are cyclic. And the fire dancers highlight these universal cycles and how they burn and cool you and me both in our life cycles.
The audience must be wondering about the technicality behind this act, isn't it, Chamoda?
Indeed, they take the oil-soaked racks and they are tied into the iron wheels with leather thongs, and once those are lit, and the dancers perform their dance by turning the wheels fast, gradually increasing the speed, and it's akin to the natural phenomenon of lightning.
The The splendor of the dance is seen when a large group of them perform simultaneously, merging their various fiery elements into an amazing display of light and heat.
The fire dancers are completely focused and immersed in their art of keeping their minds and bodies one-pointed as they create their cyclic patterns of fire. This is because the slightest inattention could result in disaster.
Indeed. The dancers tame the fire and give it as a Dalada offering, mindful of its part in cooking, protecting crops and henas, dispelling darkness, creating curiosity, satisfaction and amazement to the people viewing the procession.
We can see, regardless of the age, the dancers are from a very young age performing to the best of their energy at this offering today.
While that gives us a hope that this Perahera will continue till the eternal existence of the sun and the moon, we are now seeing the official army of flag bearers being led by the national flag of Sri Lanka, and this team is represented by the open prison camp of Pallekali.
The sight of the Buddhist flag creates a sense of unreflecting joy on the part of the people viewing the Dalada procession, reminding them that this is a celebration, devotion and offering to the Lord Buddha.
The hexacolored flag garlands the people with the six-colored radiation of light attributed to the Buddha, cooling them as nothing else could possibly can.
Indeed, the flag bearers create a sense of unlimited compassion on the Buddha through the sacred Dalada tooth relic. The sight calms indisciplined, wayward minds and focuses them on a procession of love and compassion radiating across the universe.
And following the flag bearers, we are now seeing the army of sword bearers, who are represented by the team of Angampura of the Sri Lanka Air Force.
The Dalada Perahera is a procession aimed at reducing and eradicating sorrow and sadness. Yet when people see sword bearers walking in it, there is certainly going to be a question as to why someone who is wielding a weapon has been made a part of it, isn't it, Nilesh?
Indeed, While this is true, there is only one pride in the minds of those who know the Dalada tradition when they see these sword bearers.
Indeed, the sacred Dalada tooth relic has been a symbol of kingship in the country from the day it was brought to the nation. Therefore, there were many wars that were fought for the procession, and that's why we have the tradition coming down to date.
Exactly. The history of this schemeless spans thousands of years, from the Anuradhapura period all the way to Senkadagala. The relic was protected by the might of sword-wielding warriors.
We believe that our young generations should be taught that history lesson and be informed of the fact that without the protective interventions of these men, the sacred relic could very well have been lost to the people of our land.
And that is the reason that in calm, collected, disciplined procession, these men join the procession, providing protection to the Dalada casket. And now, following the sword bearers, we are able to see the very first elephant in this evening's procession, who is leading with the Peramunerala.
It is a norm of the procession that the Peramunerala, or the leader of the procession, is the first person on elephant back.
And the elephant leading the procession today is Banda. Banda belongs to the current Deevadana Nilami of the Sri Dalada Maligawa, Honorable Pradeep Nilanga Dada. Banda is one such senior elephant in this evening's Dalada Perahera, who walks in his utmost might. And it is an interesting fact that this year Banda has come all the way to Kandy from Ratnapura by foot.
Following Banda, we see the heavy troop of Sri Dalada Maligawa coming as the first heavy troop in the third Kumbal Procession today.
Until the heavy drum beaters, permanently seconded to the service of the Dalada Maligawa, arrive in procession, no Panchaturinada or making of sound using either drums or musical instruments is permitted.
Indeed, the Perahera is a yearly occurrence to pay homage to the sacred Dalada tooth relic. It is therefore a yearly tradition that the four leaders of the heavy troop arrive first in the Dalada procession.
The prohibition of the use of the other traditional musical instruments, namely the Horanava, Thalam cymbals, dowler, conch, kombu, and anklets is to ensure that the order of playing these instruments is not compromised. In having the chance to explain about the traditional theory behind this music, The Hevisi group presents the traditional orchestra of Sinhala music of Panchature Vadana using Panchature Banda, meaning the five-fold music instruments. And these instruments include the dowla, the tammattam, the hand cymbals and horonala, which is a traditional Sri Lankan horn, which are played together to create a symphonic sound.
Indeed, in ensuring that the correct symphony is maintained, this task of the first Hevisi drum beaters is assigned to the most skilled Hevisi generation of the temple to ensure that the instruments are played well in the correct order.
The most skilled Hevisi drummer lineages of the Sri Dalada Maligawa, namely Uduwela, Malagamana, Ihalavela and Molagoda, are represented in the first row scenery, marching to the beat of the drums.
These four lineages of the drum beaters are contributing with great devotion to the celebration. The four leaders depict the recognition given to them by the king through the ways in which they decorate their Hevisi drums.
We are all blessed to live in a country that is so rich in our traditions, and such richness is also witnessed in our own musical orchestras, Stichamola.
Indeed, and also Nilesh, these Hevisi drum beaters are not limited to the procession only, isn't it?
Indeed. One may assume that the Hevisi troupe is only a part of the Perahera procession, but in fact, the role of a Hevisi musician is required in the daily, weekly, monthly and yearly offerings or Tevava that is happening in the Sri Dalada Maligawa. And now we are seeing the arrival of the Gajanayaka Nilame, the second official to be parading in tonight's procession.
The Gajanayaka Nilame arrives as the royal official in charge of the king's troop of elephants.
And this is Raja, belonging to Venerable Alutnuwara Anuruddha Nayaka Thero, the chief incumbent of the Kotte Rajamahavihara, who is parading the streets of Kandy this evening with the Gajanayaka Nilame. And following Raja, we are now seeing the Nayandi dance.
And this troupe of Nayandi dancers were trained and led by Mr. Vasantha Rajangana and Mr. Vasantha Gunatilaka. This is the first representation of the Kandian dancer in the third Kumbal Perahera today. We can see that they are preparing themselves for a beautiful performance. Let's all await that moment of performance.
The dance we are seeing right in front of us is one of the most majestic forms of upcountry traditional dancing. Now we are seeing the official carrying the Buddhist flag on the third elephant in this evening's Kumbal Perahera. The significance of a Buddhist flag being carried on the third elephant is to symbolize that this is truly a Buddhist festival, and this is the Tusker Pulatisi Raja belonging to the Sri Dalada Maligawa. Pulatisi Raja is a Tusker who was gifted from the government of Myanmar in the year 2017, and the Kandy Esala Perahera of the year 2022 is his second appearance after his debut in the year 2020. An interesting story about Pulatisi Raja is that he is one of the very few Tuskers in Sri Lanka who is very keen on both the Sinhalese and the Burmese languages in communication.
Following Pulatisi Raja, we are seeing the Pantheru dancers. And this troupe of Pantheru dancers are trained and led by Mr. Palitha Hapugola. Pantheru, or the tambourines without a skin, bring the purity of the Dalada procession into the minds of the people as they step across the promenade. The sound of the Pantheru too is synonymous with the Dalada Perahera.
And now, followed by these Pantheru dancers, we are seeing a very special duo of elephants. And prior to that, Chamoda, do you know that there is a very special connection between the Pantheru dance and the Kandy Esala Perahera?
Let's come to that in a following Pantheru dance, Nilesh. And let's talk about these two majestic tuskers making their way on the streets in front of us right now.
And that is Punchi Banda belonging to Mr. Kitsiri Velagedara and Raja belonging to Mrs. Sita Mallava of Hettimulla, the two brotherly elephants who are quite friends with each other and have been parading in the Kandy Esala Perahera together for more than 5 years. And now, followed by Punchi Banda and Raja, we are seeing the very first troupe of West dancers in the third Kumbal Perahera this evening, bringing to us the much awaited moment this evening, the arrival of the ceremonial tusker carrying the Perahera relic casket.
The streets are lit with copra lamps, and it is providing, regardless of the modern technology, it is providing the necessary light for the procession to march the streets of the Kandy city without any hindrance. This troupe of West dancers are trained and led by Mr. Ishantha Ihalawala and Lasantha Vansekala.
As mentioned in seeing the previous Nayandi dance performance, the West dance is one of the most superior and the most majestic forms of traditional upcountry dancing, where this dance is believed to be originated from the Kohoma Kankarya Healing Festival, also known as the Hatapas Mangala, which dates us back to a very interesting legend. And now we see the Karya Korala walking ahead in this third Kumbal Perahera. And now we see the most ceremonial moment of this evening's third Kumbal Perahera. The arrival of the majestic Indiraja Tusker carrying the Perahareli casket, and Indiraja is accompanied by his colleague Miyan Raja and Guruma Raja, all belonging to the Sri Dalada Maligawa stables.
Now we are seeing the Kavikara Maduwa or the Chamber of Visifiers coming up next, singing the poems and songs in veneration and appreciation of the Lord Buddha.
And now we see the second troop of West dancers walking ahead to symbolize one of the second most iconic moments of the third Kumbal Perahera.
And this West troop is led by Mr. Sanjeeva Verapitiya and Mr. Peter Surasena, who have been coming for this procession consecutively for a long time.
Indeed, the families of Surasena and Verapitiya have been parading in the Kandy Esala Perahera in this exact position, escorting the Diyavadana Nilame or his representative for many generations ahead. And we are now seeing Peter Surasena and Sanjeeva Verapitiya leading their lines of generation in this very exact moment. And now we are seeing one of the most ceremonial occasions in the third Kumbal Perahera. And that is the arrival of the representative Nilame representing the Diyavadana Nilame on this third Kumbal Perahera.
Is a very unique and authentic form of dance, accompanied by dainty moves of hands and legs, with the symphonies of the instruments and also the accessories they are wearing on their hands and the legs.
And now walking up front, representing the Diyavadana Nilame, we are seeing Honorable Mahendra Ratwatte, the Basnayak Nilame of the Sri Maha Vishnu Devalaya in Kandy, who will be walking in this procession this evening. It is the norm that the Basnayak Nilame of the Sri Maha Vishnu Devalaya will be walking in the third Kumbal Perahera. While that marks the end of the Dalada Perahera, we are now moving on to the procession of the Sri Mahanatha Devalaya.
Now we see how the godly ornaments of God Natha are being carried out of the Devalaya to be placed on the tusker, who is tasked with the task of carrying these godly ornaments onto the streets of Kandy city at the third Kumbal Perahera today.
The ceremonial elephant of the Sri Mahanatha Devala Perahera this evening will be Vichita Raja, belonging to the Dimulagala Rajamahavihara of Pulunda.
First up in the Sri Mahanatha Devala Perahera, we are seeing the Buddhist flag bearers, who again reminds us that this is a celebration and a devotion dedicated to Lord Buddha.
This army of flag bearers is represented by the Civil Defence Authority of Palikan. Followed by these the flag bearers, we are now seeing the official Hevisi troop of the Sri Mahanatha Devalaya.
Generations to come.
And this troop of Hevisi is represented by Mr. S.Y.G. Vijayasena. While one may assume that this troop of Hevisi is quite similar to the previous troop of Hevisi that we saw at the Dalada Perahera, it's quite a different answer, isn't it, Jonathan?
Yes, indeed.
The very reason behind it is that the Hevisi troop of the Sri Mahanatha Devalaya will be playing a tune that is unique to the Tevava or offering towards God Natha.
We are seeing pictures of an official carrying the flag of the Senkara state.
Exactly. The flag of the Senkadagala kingdom is the first item which is being carried on the very first leading elephant of the Sri Mahanatha Devala procession. The flag of Senkadagala is also believed to be called the flag of God Natha, and the leading elephant in this evening's procession of God Natha will be Rohana. Rohana belongs to Mr. Varuna Kannangara of Horana. In fact, the elephants from the family of the Kannangara of Horana has been playing major roles in the Sri Mahanatha Devala procession, including the famous Kahatapitiya Tusker, who belonged to the Kannangara family, who was the ceremonial tusk of the Sri Mahanatha Devala Perahera decades ago. And in fact, Rohana too was the elephant who was the ceremonial elephant carrying the godly ornaments of God Natha in the processions that was held early this week. And now we move on to the Thalam Dance performance, which is trained by Mr. Nimal Jayasingh.
The castanets or the thalam is a very simple form of musical instrument, and that helps all the Perahera dancers to keep time as the troupe goes through their moves in accordance with various timing patterns. And it is necessary that these tunes help them to keep the rhythm of their dance.
The tit matra or timing pattern of the Kandian dance tradition is provided by this thalam pattern or the castanet. This instrument is made of brass and gives out a tone that is at times flat and at times ringing. And now we see the second elephant of the Sri Mahanatha Devala procession, who is Kandula, belonging to Mr. Roshan Pathiran of Maharagama.
And on Kandula's mount, we see a Buddhist flag bearer, reminding us again that this is a celebration of the Buddhist culture.
I believe we are seeing a dance that we are just about to talk something, which we concluded in the Dalada Perahera. And this is the Panther Dance of the Sri Mahanatha Devala procession that is trained by Mr. Asanka Karunaratna. Previously in the Dalada Perahera, we concluded at a point in identifying the connection between the Kandy Esala Perahera and the Panther Dance is Dichamuda.
Indeed. Would you mind elaborating on it, Nilesh?
Definitely. It is believed that the Panther dance can be seen in its most authentic form only in the Kandy Esala Perahera up here in the Kingdom of Kandy.
Of course, the costume we find here is also the original and the authentic costume of the Panther dancers.
And now we are seeing the third elephant of the Sri Mahanatha Devala procession, who is Bibila, belonging to the elephant stable of Mr. Udara Galapatti in Giriyula. And on Bibila's mount we see two officials carrying brass stands depicting the sun and the moon, giving us the message that this Perahera will continue till the eternal existence of the sun and moon.
Following Bibila, we are seeing the pictures of the Udaki players of the Sri Mahanatha Devala procession. And these Udaki players are trained and led by Ms. Tennakon of the Sri Sarasavi Arts Academy.
Following this Udaki dance, we are now seeing Bandara, belonging to Mr. Kamal Irugal Bandara of Kottava. And Now we are stepping into the much awaited and iconic moment of the Sri Mahanatha Devala procession, which is the arrival of the ceremonial elephant carrying the godly ornaments of God Natha, and they are being escorted by this Nayandi dance.
And this Nayandi dance troupe is trained and led by Mr. Asanka Karunaratna today at the 3rd Kumbal Perahera.
In the Ramdoli Perahera processions, we are about to see the ceremonial elephants being escorted by West dancers, and it is the tradition that we are seeing Nayandi dancers escorting the ceremonial elephant of all 4 Devala shrines as per the custom of the Kumbal Peraheras.
Talking about the difference between the West dancers and the other West dancers, who are also known as Nayandi dancers, it's in the costume where the Nayandi dancers are dancing sans the headgear.
It is believed that attaining the title of a West dancer is the most prestigious milestone of any traditional Sri Lankan dancer, and in order to achieve the status of being a West dancer, they must first master themselves in the Nayandi dance.
Indeed, it is believed that these dancers obtained a royal boon after they wear their Vestatua and dance in front of the king. In literature that narrates about gods, another chapter that adds to the Sinhalese heritage with regards to gods and deities is the story of God Natha, which is that he is the reincarnation of Lord Buddha.
Indeed, and now we are seeing the most ceremonial moment in this evening's 3rd Kumbal Perahera, the godly ornaments of God Natha being carried by the majestic Vijita Raja, belonging to Venerable Millane Sirialankara Thero, the chief incumbent of the Dimbulagala Rajamahaviharaya, and accompanied by Kumari belonging to Mr. Kamakitsri of Kottava and Parami belonging to Mr. Samantha Vijayaman of Medaguda.
As it marks the end of the Sri Mahanatha Devala Perahera, we are seeing the commencement of the Sri Mahavishnu Devala Perahera, and the godly ornaments of God Vishnu are being carried out from the Devala to be placed on the mount of the Tusker, who is tasked with the holy task of carrying these godly ornaments in the streets of the Kandy city today.
And the ceremonial Tusker who is blessed with carrying the godly ornaments of God Vishnu this evening is Rama, belonging to Mr. Hiran Gunasekar of Heyanthudua.
First up, we are seeing a troop of cloth flag bearers.
Indeed, there's a speciality of the cloth flag bearers we see here, isn't it, Chamala?
Indeed, it represents the kingship and it represents the provinces which are under the Bhupati or the king.
Indeed, God Vishnu is believed to be the god delegated by Lord Buddha as the protector of Sri Lanka and carrying provincial flags as the leading item in the Sri Maha Vishnu Devala Perahera showcases the idea that Lord Vishnu is overlooking all of the state and provinces of Sri Lanka. And now we see the very first elephant of the Sri Maha Vishnu Devala Perahera carrying the flag of the Satara Korale, to which is known as the headquarters of God Vishnu. And this elephant itself is from the Satara Korale, and he is none other than Suranimala, belonging to the Alutnumura Dadimunda Devalaya, which is a part of the Sri Maha Vishnu Devalaya in Kandy. And following Suranimala, we are now seeing the official hay visit route of the Sri Maha Vishnu Devalaya.
A significant feature that we saw in the Vishnu Devala procession is that it is symbolized by the color of brilliant blue. The Dalada tooth relic and also in the Devalayas.
If clearly noticed, the tune played by these HVC players are much different to the tune we heard in the processions of the Dalada Maligawa and the Sri Mahanatha Devalaya, as this is the tune that is used in the Devava offerings towards God Vishnu. We are seeing the second elephant in this evening's procession, who is Muthubanda, belonging to Venerable Murundeniya Dhammaratana Theru, the chief incumbent of the Badulu Muthiyangana Rajamaha Viharaya.
And on the mount of Muthubanda, we are seeing a snake head canopy, and this symbolizes the protection given to the godly ornaments of God Vishnu.
We are seeing the Nayandi dance troupe of the Sri Maha Vishnu Devalaya, and in fact, we can see more than one Nayandi performance in this part of the procession, symbolizing once again on how prominent the custom of Nayandi and West is in the upcountry tradition.
We can see these Nayandi dances are performing a significant performance called the Narumatra, which is danced by holding each end of their loincloth.
And following in that Nayandi dance, we are now Sisira Samarakura of Polgahawala. Interestingly, Banda is one of the most senior elephants of the Sri Mahavishnu Devala Perahera, who has been parading in Kandy under the sky of God Vishnu for more than 30 years. And now we are seeing the Savarang dance troupe of the Sri Mahavishnu Devala Perahera.
One can hear that these Savarang dances are accompanied by a beautiful tone of flute, which is harmonizing with the dance.
Indeed, and following that youthful dance performance, we are seeing two of the most youthful participants of the Sri Mahavishnu Devala Perahera. And on one side we can see the Tusker Abe Raja belonging to Mr. L.K. Vanyarachi of Kotte and Vastu belonging to Mr. Pradeep Miyanapalava of Mavanella.
And following those youthful tuskers, we are seeing another troupe of Nayandi dancers.
It can be identified that the role of these Nayandi dancers are quite special, as they will be escorting the ceremonial tusker carrying the godly ornaments of God Vishnu.
We can see that all these elephants in the Vishnu Devala procession are draped in a brilliant blue. This is also because God Vishnu is known to be a god who is blue in complexion. And in this procession, the blue color symbolizes that representation. Preceded by these Nayandi dancers, we are seeing the chief trustee of the Sri Vishnu Devalaya taking careful strides at the third Kumbal Procession.
And now we are seeing the ceremonial tusker of the Sri Mahavishnu Devalaya, Rama, belonging to Mr. Hiran Gunasekar of Heyankatu. This single tusked yet majestic tusker is accompanied by Sita, belonging to Mrs. Nilanti Veerasinghe of Meerigama, and Vasana, belonging to Mrs. Krishanti Alapatha of Ratnapura.
We are seeing pictures of the godly ornaments of God Vishnu.
the combination of Rama, Sita and Vasana have been in part of the Sri Maha Vishnu Devala procession ever since the past half decade, and the single-tusked majesty is indeed a treasure to the Sri Maha Vishnu Devalaya.
And that marks the end of the Sri Maha Vishnu Devala Perahera, marking the commencement of the Sri Maha Kataragama Devala Perahera. We can see that the traditional rituals are being followed inside the Kataragama Devalaya.
We are now seeing the godly ornaments of God Kataragama being majestically carried by the Iyer of the Sri Maha Kataragama Devalaya towards the Ceremonial Elephant. And this evening the Ceremonial Elephant of the Sri Maha Kataragama Devalaya will be Chula of the Palmadula Rajamaha Viharaya.
We are seeing the Buddhist flag bearers leading the way as the first troop in the Sri Maha Kataragama Devala Perahera.
We are seeing a variety of flags in this Kataragama Devala procession. We see Buddhist flags and the flags of God Kataragama. In fact, it is believed that God Kataragama was assigned by Lord Buddha as the protector of Buddhism, which is the reason why this procession too is preceded by Buddhist flags, despite God Kataragama or God Skanda is of Hindu origin. And now we are seeing the arrival of the official Hevisi troop of the Sri Maha Kataragama Devalaya, which is led by Mr. P.V. James Guru Nanse. Despite the heavy rains, we are seeing the majestic arrival of the Gajanayaka Nilame of the Sri Maha Kataragama Devalaya on the Mount of Manike belonging to Mr. Anura Kempiti of Kilpane. And on the mount we see the Gajanayaka Nilame, Mr. Tharaka Didula, who is walking up front in this third Kumbal Procession.
Following the Gajanayaka Nilame, we are seeing a troupe of castanet players.
And this troupe of castanet or Thalam dancers are being trained by Miss Ajanta Kandegedara of the Sarasavi Aesthetic Academy of Kegal. For anyone who has been noticing about the tempo of the Perahera thus far, it can be noticed that the tempo of the Sri Maha Kataragama Devala is much faster than any of the other segments that we witnessed before.
Indeed, that is because the god Kataragama is known to be a god of war.
And now we are seeing the arrival of the young elephant Raju belonging to Mr. Chamila Bandara Nayaka of Gannoruwa.
Following that, we are seeing a troupe of wooden wood tappers making their way in a very energetic and a vigorous performance.
And for those of you who have noticed a different sort of drum, which is called the Danduberaya, that is used as an instrument to provide the tune for this energetic form of dance.
And the lead who has made this beautiful performance a reality is none other than Mr. Upali Dharmaratna, from the Upali Dharmaratna Aesthetic Academy, Matale.
And following that Lekeli dance act, we are seeing a duo of elephants. Esala belonging to Venerable Katugasthura Sarada Thero of the Perisyala Sena Nayaka Mudalinda Ramya, and Ratna belonging to Venerable Bengamuye Dhammadinna Thero, the chief incumbent of the Pelmadula Rajamaha Viharaya.
Following those two elephants, now we are seeing a troupe of Udaki dancers, and these Udaki dancers are trained by Mr. Dhammika Bandara Tennakon, and they are coming from the Dhammika Tennakon Aesthetic Academy of Napana.
The Udakia is an instrument that we have been seeing in various parts of the procession, and now we are seeing another elephant walking majestically in this procession tonight, and this is Sudumanike belonging to Mr. Buddhika Mirihella of Kadugalinawa.
Following that majestic beast, now we are seeing another troupe of Nayandi dancers at the Sri Mahakataragama Devalaya procession at the third Kumbal procession today.
The story of Nayandi and Bess dates back to the time of King Pandukabel, when he was dispelled in darkness by the curse of Kuweni, for which the King Malaya from India was invited to Sri Lanka to perform the Hatapas Mangala as a healing ritual to heal King Pandukabel, and the role of continuing the healing festival was handed over to one of the local youths named Kohomba, who is currently being worshipped as God Kohomba, the guardian deity of the hills of Hantana.
Preceded by these Nayandi dancers, now we are seeing the chief Iyer of the Kataragama Devalaya. His outfit symbolizes the South Indian influence which is associated with God Kataragama.
In this majestic celebration of different cultures, we are now seeing the arrival of the elephant Chula belonging to Venerable Bengamuye Dhammadinna Thero, who is carrying the godly ornaments of God Kataragama this evening, and Chula is accompanied by Sankaraja belonging to Venerable Kokavala Kosala Thero of the Amilipitiya Sankapala Rajamaha Viharaya, and Aruna belonging to the late Venerable Higgoda Saddhananda Thero, the chief incumbent of the Handala Rajamaha Viharaya, and that marks the end of the Sri Maha Kataragama Esala Perahera.
Marking the beginning of the final Devalaya Perahera, which is the Sri Mahapattini Esala Perahera. We can see the officials who are tasked with the rituals inside the Devalaya performing their tasks along with the Arati Ammas, and they are now carrying the godly ornaments of Goddess Pattini out of the Pattini Devalaya to be carried in the streets of Kandy today, at the third Kumbal Perahera of the Esala Perahera 2022.
And the ceremonial elephant of this evening's Panther Dance procession will be Mangala from Wielders, and the Perahera is now led by the Buddhist flag bearers.
These Buddhist flag bearers reminds us again and again that this is a celebration of the Buddhist culture and the heritage of the Kandian city.
Followed by these Buddhist flag bearers, we are now seeing the official Hevisi troupe of the Sri Mahapatini Devalaya. And this troupe of Hevisi is being used in the daily, weekly, monthly and yearly rituals of the Sri Mahapatini Devala Theva, all the offerings that are made towards Goddess Patini.
Drum beaters is being led by Mr. M.G. Parthanishankar, Mr. M.G. Sirisena and Mr. M.G. Premadas.
Regardless of the adverse weather conditions, it is never a reason to hold the Kandy Esala Perahera, as this Perahera festival is pledged to be continued under whatever the circumstances that may exist till the eternal existence of the sun and the moon. And now we see the first elephant of the Sri Mahapatini Devala procession this evening carrying an official with the Buddhist flag, and this elephant is Sudu Mahatya, belonging to Mr. Thilina Gamage of Maharagama.
This dance reminds us of a very special feature of the Sri Patini Devala Perahera, since it is the only female representation at the Dalada procession. These ladies take the streets of Kandy, paying no heed to their gentle souls. This team of female Nayandi dancers are trained and led by Ms. Lakshmi Kumari from the Ketumati Aesthetic Art Academy of Murthalawa.
And now following, we see Chuti Menke belonging to Mr. Bharata Amaratunga of Meegoda and Sita belonging to Mr. Roshan Patirana of Maharagama.
Following those two elephants, now we are seeing a traditional folk dance.
This dance act certainly paints a picture of the rural village life in Sri Lanka, portraying the roles of both the men and the women in harvesting and the main roles in the traditional Sri Lankan agriculture industries.
Indeed, it also shows how both men and women equally participate in these activities to ensure that there is a bountiful harvest to feed the families and the generations.
Sri Lanka is always known as a country that is rich in its primary sector of economic activity, and this dance act certainly paints a picture on the background of how traditional we are rich in our agriculture and primary economic sector. followed by these young female performers. Now we see Sanju belonging to Mr. Jagat Vitana of Matugama. As Sanju is dressed in this lavishly adorned yellow attire, we are given the opinion that the color of goddess Pattini is similar to yellow.
Indeed, there is a belief that it is a mixture of yellow and white, isn't it, English?
Indeed, in Sinhalese, the acronym used to define the color of goddess Pattini is called the Shwetavarnya, which is a healthy mix of the colors of white and yellow, as the idol behind goddess Pattini is fertility and chastity, and the charm environment of these dance acts and the elephants depict the true holiness and noble qualities of goddess Pattini.
We are seeing a troupe of Savaram dancers trained and led by Miss Takshila Sirivardhana from the Takshila Aesthetic Arts Academy of Yatihalagala. There is a speciality in these Savaram, isn't it, Nilesh?
Indeed, for a person who may not be knowing about what the world's coolest form of air is, I believe this would be a pictorial answer to that question.
Of course, these Savaram or the Chamara are believed to be made from the tail hair of a deer called Semara, and it is believed that the cooling breeze which is sent out from these Chamara are the most cooling breeze in the world.
And following that cooling dance performance, we are now seeing the final elephant, who is Manika, belonging to Mrs. Shriyani Gunawardhana of Dangmovita. We are seeing the final item of this evening's third Kumbal Procession, the arrival of the ceremonial elephant carrying the godly ornaments and statue of goddess Pattini, who is accompanied by these Nayani dancers.
And this team of Nayani dancers, who will be the final team of Nayani dancers at the third Kumbal Procession today, are being trained and led by Mr. Mithun Bandara. And they are coming from the Mithun Bandara Arts Academy of Vatapur.
In fact, the generations of the Mithun Bandara family dates back to decades down the line, where the family of the Wielders have been performing in the Kandy Esala Perahera in this exact segment of the Sri Mahapattini Devala procession, where they are dancing ahead of the ceremonial elephant carrying the godly ornaments of goddess Pattini.
Now we are seeing the chief trustee of the Sri Mahapattini Devalaya walking ahead of the godly ornaments of goddess Pattini.
Amidst the sound of the traditional conch shells, we are seeing the final and the most reverential moment of this evening's third Kumbal Procession, the arrival of the elephant Mangala belonging to Mr. Udara Galapatti of Giriyulla, carrying the godly ornaments of goddess Pattini, and he is accompanied by Bandara belonging to Mrs. Vijayanti Perera of Horana, and Manike belonging to Mr. H.R. Nishanka of Kegol.
And that marks the end of the third Kumbal Procession. Let there be timely rains that will bring life-giving waters to our fields and ensure a bountiful harvest.
May our country prosper. Dalada Samidu Pihitai.